Okay, this video is going to be the front cover of Medical Reformation Vegan Renaissance Bible. And I'm going to pretty much go through the book. I'll ad-lib a little. We'll see how it kind of goes. So starting out with the inside front cover, I'll give you some of my logic too on why I do stuff. Basically, I think it's a sign of a good author that they get to the point quickly. So, first of all, I like having a big picture on the cover. And then I like the first page to have some useful textual information. Also, when people go to Amazon, they first look, read a sample, right? And they only get, quite often, the first couple of pages. So you want to make the first couple of pages good. And if a person can't come up with something good in the first couple of pages, then they probably can't come up with anything good the whole book. There are some exceptions to that. People who start out slow, but then their books get good. But usually it's pretty obvious in the first couple of pages if the author has anything useful to share with you. Okay, so, and the other thing too, what I'm usually doing when I write a book, I'm writing it several layers, okay? On the one hand, the idea of the Reformation with Martin Luther is a little bit of interesting historical thing, so it was kind of fun to put, Martin Luther on the cover. Here I stand, I can do no other. It's unsafe to go against conscience. I cannot and will not recant anything. So all of that's a little bit of fun, and that's the picture on the cover, Martin Luther to Diet of Worms. I got the same thing on the back right here. So some of this stuff, you've heard it before in my lectures and stuff, but for other persons in the audience who haven't heard it before, I'm just going to go by what's in the book. With the Ten Commandments, I start out right at the beginning. All right, it says, "You are fat because you eat the wrong food. It is your fault, and that is good, because it means you can fix it." You always want the problem to be your fault, because then you got a chance to fix it and get better. You don't want to be like the typical chump, expecting your doctor to fix you. Okay, in the name of the starch, the fruit, and the vegetable, let us pray. The 10 commandments of nutrition are written in stone. Follow them and you will be born again into better body weight and better health. Starch is the true God. So here's commandment number 1. Starch is the true God of food. Thou shalt put no other foods before starch. Starches include potatoes, sweet potatoes, rice, beans, oatmeal, quinoa. Eat starch to satisfy hunger and to provide energy. Starch is the way. Starch is the entree. Starch should provide about 60 to 90% of your calories. So basically, if you want to get skinny, the lower the percent of calories from fat, the faster you'll lose weight. So potatoes, sweet potatoes, and rice are all 1% fat. 1% of the calories are from fat. I actually think sweet potatoes are the best food in the world because they have about 4.5% protein. You also preferably would like your protein intake to be low. It's impossible for it to be too low. So sweet potatoes are about 4.5% fat. Rice in the ballpark of about 7 or 8% fat. Calories from protein. Sweet potatoes are 4.5% of the calories from protein. Regular potatoes, about 8 or 9% of the calories from protein. Okay, beans are about 30% of the calories from protein. So that's a little bit of a downside to beans. Beans also have tons of fiber, though, and they really slow down absorption, which is a good thing. In general, you can think of starch as being a polymer of glucose wrapped in fiber, which is good. It's low caloric density, stretches your stomach, so you get early satisfaction of hunger, and then as it passes into your intestinal tract, the enzymes, digestive enzymes, have to peel off the fiber, separate it from the glucose, so you get the slow absorption of glucose, and your blood glucose level stays normal a prolonged amount of time. So it really satisfies hunger with the fewest possible calories, and that keeps you energetic, clear-headed, thin. It's like a slow-release energy pill. That's why it's such a great food. And look at these populations where they eat the rice. They're skinny, they're healthy. Look at the Asians. The rice-eating Asians before 1980. They're skinny. Look at Papua New Guinea eating the sweet potatoes as 93% of their calories. They were skinny and fit. Okay, even despite the fact they smoke like chimneys, they still didn't have that much lung cancer, 6 times less than Americans, and that's because the high fat of the American diet coupled with the smoking causes tissue ischemia, and you get the Warburg effect of hypoxia-induced cancer. Okay, thine brain is a thermostat. Hypothalamic hunger center forces you to eat exactly the amount of food that you do. So yeah, we have a set point in our brain. You can think of it as being like your arcuate nucleus, for example, in the hypothalamus, the hunger center. And you're going to eat about exactly the amount that you do of whatever it is that you eat. So the only way to win this game is you have to change what you eat. And it's not a... Okay, so let me advance the page here. Okay, hypothalamic hunger center forces you to eat exactly the amount of food that you do. Eat less and exercise more is the mantra of chumps. It does not work. That's what most people think, but it doesn't work. You can only reset the thermostat by changing what you eat. You do not need to count the calories. Just eat the right foods and your body will go to the right body weight for you. Vegetables are the best source of nutrients. Fruits are good in limited amounts. And now fruit gets out of the whole big topic. We've talked about it before, and I have whole entire lectures on it. And I think fruits are actually a very good food, but there are some caveats. If you're young and you exercise a lot, you can eat tons of fruit. A lot of the fruits are artificially sweetened. They're sweeter than they used to be. And they don't satisfy your hunger as much. You can keep on eating them. So where it starts, when you're full, you're full. Okay, if thou art young and skinny, or if thou exercisest much, then may eateth much more fruit. They're alkaline, they're low in fat, they're low in protein. They have a lot of good qualities about them, and I actually think we have color vision so we can see when fruits are ripe. Before every meal, ask yourself 3 questions. What starch, what vegetable, what fruit? Okay, plants provide what you need to spread your seed. You know, vegans are better looking, okay? They're skinny, they're healthy, they have a glow of vitality about them because they got better blood flow to their skin. They just are better looking. They age better than other people. Vegetables vasodilate by increasing nitric oxide. You know, they have the nitrate precursors for nitric oxide vasodilator. They got more potassium. They got more magnesium. It's true, it's true. Food, mood, and wood, okay? So all of these things are better on a low-fat vegan diet. Better blood flow, the glow of vitality. Okay, number 5. It's not a diet, it's a way of life. You're going to eat this way the rest of your life. This is not, you don't just fast for a month and solve all your problems. That can help you, you know, change your diet. It can do some good things for you. But what I'm trying to say is you don't just diet for a month or two and then get a new set point and just go with that. No, you have to eat this way the rest of your life. And the good thing about it is it prevents, you know, most of the major common diseases. So it's, as far as I'm aware, it's the only way to avoid all those diseases, the typical ones that Westerners get: atherosclerosis, hypertension, diabetes, and all their complications, osteoarthritis, obesity, etc. Okay, thou shalt not eat meat. Meat makes you fat. Milk is liquid meat. Cheese is meat jello. When you eat it, you look like the animal it came from, the cheese. Okay, pizza looks the same on your plate as it does in your arteries. That's what atherosclerotic plaque looks like inside your arteries. Okay, meat causes leaky gut, xenocellulitis, inflammation, autoimmune disease. There's no fiber in meat. Okay, so you need fiber to maintain a healthy gut, because the good gut bacteria take the fiber and they convert it into short-chain fatty acids, in particular the butyrate, and that's what is used by your small intestinal lining cells, your enterocytes, to maintain tight junctions. If you don't get your fiber, you're going to have problems with that. Meat has no fiber, so again, you get constipation. You get the whole Dennis Burkitt abdominal pressure syndrome, the back pressure, causing, you know, diverticulosis, diverticulitis, hiatal hernia, gastroesophageal reflux disease, increased risk of esophageal cancer, varicose veins from the pressure pushing down into the scrotum, varicocele, infertility, inguinal hernias, periumbilical hernias, dry stool on the right side of the colon. You get more appendical lifts and appendicitis. Okay, meat has increased iron, so it accelerates your developing iron overload, which is the main problem in Americans. It also often have been fed estrogenic chemicals, so you get estrogen overloaded, which is a fat storage hormone, tends to promote obesity. The milk nowadays is typically given from a pregnant cow with really high estrogen levels. And tumor promotion. Okay, number 7, thou shalt not eat oils. Okay, oils are liquid fat. They all make you fat. All oils are bad. Olive oil is bad for you. Coconut oil is bad for you. We'll talk about this in more detail later, but oil is for chumps. Okay, if you must go to a restaurant, then choose a buffet and eat your salad without dressing. Skip the dressing and you will look better undressed. Salad dressing is for pussies. People always ask me, oh, what about salad dressing? You know, just eat your food. What happens too is your tastes become simplified. And once you get used to not putting stuff on a salad, you'll be fine with it. I mean, if you want to put stuff, go ahead. I don't care. You know, I like to get things done simple and fast, so I tend to not be too fussy about the details. I know some people love to do all that, so go ahead and do that. If you enjoy that, fine. But I still wouldn't put any oily dressing on there. I would never do that. Because what I basically say to myself is, I'm only going to do good things. I'm not going to do bad things. Why would I want to do anything bad for my health? That's a simple way to think, and that's why you need to know what food is good for you, what's bad for you. And once you know that, then just don't eat the stuff that's bad for you. Number 8, thou shalt not commit adultery with junk food and fast food. Yeah, that's the other thing too. I see so many people fail in their health because they kind of think it's like a bit of a big joke. You know, just like we have herbivore physiology for digestion and health, we've also got herbivore brains. And a herbivore brain is a safe place to be, is in the middle of the pack. And people tend to, by default, think socially. You know, everything in moderation, variety's the spice of life, when in Rome, do as the Romans do. I don't think that way at all. I think sort of biblically. Thou shalt not eat meat because it's bad for you. Thou shalt not eat oils because it's bad for you. Okay, so I just don't do those things. And, you know, it's the same old story. If you're an alcoholic, you would tell them, you don't drink alcohol on the weekends. You never drink alcohol again. You don't, you know, smoke cigarettes on the weekends. You don't ever smoke cigarettes again. You know, and that's the type of thinking that gets people cured, and you get incredible turnarounds in health. Whereas, and I know from experience, a lot of people, they'll say the same thing. Typical thing women say to me is, you know, I don't think I could do that. I'm cutting down on oil. I'm cutting down on processed food. I'm cutting down on meat. Okay, typical thing a guy will say to me, oh, I need my meat. I don't think I can give up meat. I'd rather die than stop eating meat. You're going to take away my ice cream? My ice cream is one of the few things in life I enjoy. I'm like, go ahead, you know. Go ahead, plug up your arteries, you know. Be a dummy, you know. You'll have a lot of company. All right, let's see here. There are two kingdoms of food. The vegan kingdom is the land, so thou shalt not bear false witness against the vegan diet. The vegan kingdom is the land of healthy aging, like the Tarahumara, Okinawa, Yanomamo, rural Kenya, Sardinia, Loma Linda, etc. Okay. The meat and junk food kingdom is the land of the fat and the sick, like the Nauru, the Pima, and most Americans, okay, most Western societies. The Nauru was that little island near Papua New Guinea where they had a lot of phosphate in their soil, so the big companies came, and they were really healthy people. And the big companies said, we'll give you money if you let us mine the phosphate out of your soil. So they gave them a lot of money. They were the richest country in the world for a while. But because they lost all their topsoil, they couldn't farm. They used to all be skinny. And once they started having processed food shipped in, they're the fattest people in the world. Average body weight of an adult is 230 pounds. So pretty stupid. Okay, you may ask, what about the fat vegans? They have fallen into the temptation of nuts, oils, sweets, seeds, the siren song of philosophic vegetarians. Do not be fooled by these false prophets. The path to optimal body weight is orthodox veganism, low sodium, low fat, low protein, whole food, 100% organic, 100% vegan, starch-based with no oil, caffeine, alcohol, or sweets. Yeah, caffeine's also bad for people. It's for chumps. It gets a lot of positive publicity because it's, you know, it's $1 billion product. So everybody's going to keep telling you coffee and tea are good for you. They're not. Okay, we'll talk about that later, but that's for chumps. All right, does that sound like too much of an effort? Get thee an attitude of gratitude. Heal your objections to veganism and it may heal you. Yeah, that's my attitude. People say, oh, well, how could you be so disciplined? And the way I am is because I know if you don't do this, you're screwed. Okay, all day long I just see endless patients. They're fat, sick, hypertensive, diabetic, their coronary arteries are plugged up, their intracranial arteries are plugged up, their aortas are all calcified. And, you know, over 60, most of them are real cognitively slow, and they really have zero hope of ever being cured or healed. And so, you know, I try to help them, but I know most of them. The reason I say that is you have to have mental sharpness and say, okay, I get it. I'm going to do all these things. These are good. And what I'm basically saying is people don't just plug up their arteries, you know, in their heart and in their Johnson. They plug them up in their brain and they become stupid, okay? I've got internal medicine friends, and from my own experience, most of the people I speak to over 60 years of age are cognitively slow. And a lot of them are cognitively slow in their 50s. And I see a lot of demented people in their 40s even these days, in their late 40s. And so I'm just saying is what you want to do is keep those arteries open and keep your smarts so you can turn things around. So what I'm saying is the correct attitude is, all I have to do is eat this low-fat, low-sodium, vegan diet with no oil, and I can avoid all these diseases. Thank you, God. I'll do it. I'll do it. Thank you. Thank you. I'm not scared of eating a salad and some starch. I'm scared of, you know, ending up on the open heart table with the circulating saw, buzzsaw, cutting up the sternum and all that kind of stuff. No, thank you. I know exactly what those procedures involve. I don't want any of them. Okay, let's see. When the rest of your age cohort is fat, diabetic, woodless, hooked on hypertension pills, mentally slow, and worried about open heart surgery, you will be waking up with wood, and the only question will be whether to bop the bishop or bang the Betty. Starch hath saved you. Number 10, thou shalt not covet thy neighbor's plate. Thou shalt not covet thy neighbor's plate of GMO fed, hormonally hypertrophied, antibiotic assaulted, hexane extracted, MSG marinated, trans fat fried Frankenstein food. Forget about all that junk. Okay, welcome to health purgatory. Restore hope, all ye who enter. So that's the opposite of hell, which Dante faced when he stood with Virgil at the gates of hell. They said, "Abandon hope, all ye who enter." And I joke that with conventional medicine, it's like has a sign above saying, "Abandon hope, all ye who enter," because they never cure anything. They never cure any of the chronic diseases. That's why they call them chronic. Okay, in the Middle Age, I found myself in a dark wood and the path was lost. Dante from the Divine Comedy. And as I said before, that is what it's like for these adults. Everything was fine when they were young. The Johnson works. They're all happy. They're energetic. All of a sudden, in their mid-30s, now they're working a lot. They have a baby at home. They're not sleeping. They're fat, and they start getting sick. They start having problems. And it's like, what am I going to do? They just go to the doctor. He goes, take all these pills. The pills don't really work. So then they're like, oh, crap, now I'm a sick person. Okay, well, now we can help you find your way to health paradise, to being the healthiest that you could be. So the theme song is Winners Eat Starch and Fruits for six-pack abs and a horn that toots. Okay, key message. Become a low-fat vegan or you're fucked, okay, for health, basically, all right? It's good to be a nice person. That'll lower your stress level, but, it's not enough. You got to try to eat healthy as well. Plant eaters are healthier because it's what we're made to eat. Premium fuel for premium performance. Yeah, I mean, you should take at least as good a care of yourself as you do of your car. You got a nice car, a nice sports car, you're going to put premium gas in it, what the owner's manual says. And for humans, it's this low-fat, low-sodium vegan diet. And, you got your car, you only need it to last, 20 years hopefully or something. But your body, it's got to last your whole life, hopefully, 90 or more years. So the motto is vegan today, vegan tomorrow, vegan forever. Okay, and it's kind of funny. And I got that idea from A.W. Pugin. He was this great Catholic artist, part of the Catholic Renaissance in Victorian England in the mid-1800s. And he would say, Gothic today, Gothic tomorrow, Gothic forever. Okay, he was a great architect. Okay, so here I put some pictures right in the beginning. And the reason I do that is I want to make a point, and I also want to show, that's actually one of the most unique things about this book, is I got lots of pictures in it, okay? And I do that because people remember the pictures better. Dennis Burkett had said people would come up to him that had seen his lectures many years ago, like 20 years before, and they would say, gee, I still remember the pictures, the jokes, the cartoons, if you will, more so than a lot of the other stuff. Okay, so this is the most important painting ever made in the history of the world. This is by Michelangelo, and this is the creation of Adam. So God's finger reaches out to Adam's, and the spark of life is passed, okay? Interesting, too, you see this blanket around him. It looks like a brain, and I actually think it is a brain, okay? This is the pituitary coming down here. The legs are like forming the brain stem. Here's the frontal lobe, parietal lobe, occipital lobe, temporal lobe. And it was said that Michelangelo meant that too. So it's like the mind of God. And that right there is Eve. He's bringing Eve to Adam. And the other ones in here are the angels. So anyways, that's kind of interesting. All right, but the important point in Genesis of the Bible is man is created in the image of God. And that's a very important point. Okay, therefore man is both part divine and part beast. Therefore he is entitled to natural rights like life, liberty, the pursuit of happiness, free speech, and privacy. Okay, this was painted in 1510 on the Sistine Chapel ceiling in the Vatican in Rome. Okay, the only thing that can save healthcare, I'm telling you, is Bible ethics. All right, now there's a lot of people are young or they're stupid, and there's a lot of people that are dishonest, they're trolls and stuff. And they don't understand. They say, oh, all you need is science. You don't need God. You don't need religion. And I would say, you don't know what you're talking about. It will always be much, much, much more profitable to rip people off, to lie to them, to operate on them for no reason, to sell them drugs that don't work, than it will ever be to teach them and help them. Okay? If you love somebody, you tell them the truth. If you want to help somebody, you tell them the truth. And so what I'm saying is, let's say you run a hospital, okay, in private practice. If you teach people about nutrition, bring them in like Esselson's course. I don't know what he charges, $500, $1,000 or something like that. I don't know. Okay, I went to it, but it was free for me as a healthcare professional many, many, many years ago. So what I'm saying is, you're only going to get, let's say, $1,000, $2,000 at the most, maybe a weekend course, a couple days course. Maybe there's some other ways to do that, but most of the time you get nothing. Insurance companies routinely do not pay for teaching the patient at all. So what I'm trying to say is, if you're running a private practice hospital, you get $30,000 for every coronary stent. You get that patient hooked on drugs for life if you put them on, a statin, an aspirin, some other blood thinner, or whatever. And then if you put a stent in, you get $30,000. You do open heart surgery, you get about $120,000, $150,000 with everything involved. Of course, that's what they're going to do. Okay? And by default, the other value system in modern society is what we would call atheistic Darwinism. And that basically says mankind is just, a talking primate, a talking monkey. Well, basically, talking monkeys have no rights. You put them in cages, okay? And so it's perfectly acceptable to rip off a talking monkey, okay? It's perfectly acceptable to operate on them for no reason, and that's why you don't want atheistic Darwinism. And the current system is all run on atheistic Darwinism, okay? So it really does matter. I can tell you this, all this stuff about improving healthcare, it's all a big joke. You could never improve healthcare until you have Bible ethics, okay? You just can't, because if the patient is, the way modern hospitals are run, they're run like factories. These are not the old Catholic hospitals with, St. Ignatius changing your bandages for free, okay? In these hospitals, they're run by assembly lines, and what a doctor is expected to do is generate as many billing codes as fast as possible. The number one thing valued in a doctor in modern clinical practice is speed, because what they say is everybody goes by the standard of care. Forget about that, okay? That's irrelevant. Just do the standard of care, generate billing codes faster, 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 faster. Crack the whip, okay? We got to be efficient. And so that's what it's all about. Whether or not a patient gets better, no one cares and no one knows. The reason is the patients passed around here and there, and there's no money in keeping track of whether or not patients do well, and you never want hospitals or clinics to compare outcomes, because if they did and somebody used, the vegan diet, they would have by far the best outcomes. So I've never in my life met any place that kept track of outcomes, because there's no money in it. All right, even though that would be the most valuable thing you could do is say, look at our outcomes, now they're getting better, and they would never do it, because if they competed based on outcomes, somebody would start using vegan diet and just kick everybody's ass. Okay, so it'll never happen. And I'm telling you, nothing can get better until you value that patient. Say, I love this person, I care about them, I'm going to do right by them no matter what. I don't give a shit if we lose $150,000. We're going to help this person. You have to think that way, or you really can't do the right thing. And I can tell you, in current clinical practice, the patient's just a talking monkey, and whatever happens to them really doesn't matter, whereas the money does matter big time. And I said, too, the insurance companies are in on it because they set up the billing the way it is. They make sure that the doctor's paid to prescribe a drug, paid for a surgery, for an imaging test. They are not paid to sit there and talk about low-fat vegan diet, what causes atherosclerosis, what causes diabetes. You go through the medical books, every chapter is the same thing. Diabetes, hypertension, cancer, you name it. Nobody knows what causes it. It's increased with aging. It's partly genetic. So you might as well take this pill. It seems to slow things down a little bit. That's like every chapter in the book. That's why I can confidently say the standard medical textbooks, including the Harvard editions, they all stink. And I would even say the chief of internal medicine at all the Ivy League medical schools, they're a joke. Okay, they just prescribe a bunch of drugs that don't work. The neurology books are a joke. Okay, I know that because I know all they do is prescribe drugs that don't work. Okay, or that work very little. Okay, nobody gets cured by these drugs. All right, about antibiotics are about the only drug that ever cures anything. I can also tell you that, even once you know this stuff, you still can't cure most patients, because probably 95% of patients, they don't want to do this diet stuff. They go, like I said, they're going to say, I'd rather die than stop eating meat. I need my meat. Oh, I'll cut down a little. I mean, they won't do it. I know from experience, they won't do it. It's very rare. And people say, well, what about Esselstyn? He had 89% compliance with his diet. Well, his patients often had a previous coronary event, and they were intelligent people who sought him out. Okay, so those are intelligent, highly motivated people who sought him out. That's not the average person. That's not the average patient. I got lots of doctors, graduate degrees in my family who won't fix their diets. Okay, it's not just intelligence; it's personality as well. And most people have what you would call a social herbivore way of thinking and social herbivore approach to food, etc. Okay, so here is the painting of Adam and Eve by Jan Bruegel, Peter Rubens in 1615, beautiful painting. And what I'm saying is humans are designed to live pretty much like Adam and Eve, but nowadays we have the advantage of indoor heating, indoor plumbing. And this is Genesis 1:29. It says, "Then God said, Behold, I have given you every plant yielding seed, which is upon the face of all the earth, and every tree which has fruit. It shall be food for you." And there it is. That's how you want to kind of live. We do well in extended family groups, and they help each other. And we can. I've given previous entire lectures on this Bible stuff, and we're not going to go into that anymore at the moment. Okay, so here is the picture of Martin Luther at the Diet of Worms. He had already nailed his 95 Theses to the wall on the church in Wittenberg. He had already taken the papal bull and burned it, and now this was the last straw before final excommunication and being burnt for heresy. And Martin Luther said a lot of things, including the simplest peasant with scripture knows more than the Pope without it. Okay, so this is, like I said, the painting Martin Luther Died of Worms by Anton Werner. And so what I said is that, the medical reformation means that the simplest peasant with low-fat vegan diet can save more patients than the head of Harvard Hospital without it. Okay, and that's true. If you took a bunch of people with no medical education, none, zero, okay, just let's say 1 week of health lectures, and they put people on a low-fat vegan diet, they would have better outcomes than any hospital in the United States, than the best results of any other hospital, because drugs just don't work. These are dietary diseases. The way you treat a dietary disease is you fix the diet, and if you don't do that, you can't get very good results. And it doesn't matter, how much of a big mouth blowhard the Ivy League or big name medical center person is. Okay, and when you look closely at their departments, you'll realize they're a joke. Okay. I've seen some of these real famous medical centers, and their health and wellness people are these fatsos, and they recommend the Mediterranean diet. And they're big. It's like a comedy. Okay, it's so stupid. Most dietitians recommend Mediterranean diet. Most health courses on obesity, they emphasize bariatric surgery, and they don't know what they're talking about. Okay, it's a big joke. Okay, now here's a beautiful painting. This is the School of Athens. By Raphael, 1511, public domain, also in the Vatican, in the Stanza signature, the signature room. Okay, and so this is just a magnificent painting. You can see it's mostly Greek scientists and philosophers. And then it's also, they put Michelangelo in there. Raphael admired him so much once he got a glimpse of the Sistine Chapel ceiling. There is Aristotle pointing down to the earth. That's where we'll find our wisdom. He's a biology background. Okay, and there's Aristotle saying, up to the sky, the perfect forms one can look. Socrates debating something with students, and Alcibiades, and it's just a magnificent painting. And what I'm saying is, we're in a little bit something that reminds me of the Renaissance. The Renaissance is typically talked about as being reawakening of knowledge and understanding and interest in the ancient Greeks and the ancient Romans, and somewhat they claim it's like a secularization to some extent of their thought and their philosophy, but that, by the way, is quite accurate, is quite exaggerated. What I mean by that is the Renaissance was a time of intense religiosity, okay? Remember Savonarola in Florence around 1490, the Bonfire of the Vanities, and Botticelli, the greatest painter of all the 1400s, him and Rogier van der Weyden. Botticelli burnt some of his paintings because he felt he was becoming too secular, okay? That's how crazy and how intensely religious it was. Michelangelo's favorite book was Dante's Divine Comedy, especially the Inferno chapter, Descent into Hell and all that stuff. That's pretty intense fire and brimstone, religiosity. Okay, so anyways, this is magnificent. And what I'm saying is, what I see on the internet basically reminds me of that. You go to some of these great internet video channels like Chef AJ's Veg Source and Green with Amy, Dr. McDougall, my channel. We're trying to help you guys and giving you all this information. And there's almost like a little bit of a competition. Who can give the best lecture? Who can provide the best information? And that's good. You want people competing about good things, competing in ways where they're trying to help each other or trying to create something good and beautiful. That's all good. So, anyways, I love that painting. I think it's one of the greatest paintings of all time. I have both these paintings in my bathroom. I put my favorite paintings on the wall in my bathroom because they inspire me. If you want to someday create, I try to see myself as a creator and an author. You want to create good things. You want to see what other people have done that'll inspire you. They're really good stuff. Okay, here is the Tower of Babel, the Tower of Babel, and perhaps the Tower of Babel represents Babylon. Conventional medical textbooks on common chronic diseases all say the same thing. Yeah, I just went through that. And they say the disease is unknown cause. That means idiopathic, which means the doctor is an idiot and the patient is pathetic. And it's basically like a manual for teaching people to deal drugs. You might as well take a pill and try to slow it down. Allopathic medicine, which is most conventional medicine, basically says match the ill to the pill and send the bill. It basically teaches students that this disease is over here. This is hypertension. This is atherosclerosis. This is coronary artery disease. This is peripheral vascular disease. This is cerebral vascular disease. This is gastroesophageal reflux. It puts everything into separate categories, and it's like reductionism. Versus really being smart is about health and medicine is to realize that so many diseases are all just manifestations of the same thing. Atherosclerosis is a blood clot. Anything that causes the blood to clot increases that tendency, will increase atherosclerosis. LDL cholesterol does that. Big surprise. Okay, so anyways, people think, oh, doctors are so smart and medical school books are so good. It's an illusion. It's a big fake. It's a big joke, okay? They don't know what they're talking about. I can tell you, I get medical students occasionally, and I can tell you this. They're very nice, and they really want to learn. They really want to help their patients, but they will have spent 4 years of pre-med, 4 years of med school, and I sometimes get residents that'll come by, and I'll teach residents. They really don't know much more than the medical student, and I'm telling you, they don't know the three big, most important things: nutrition, epidemiology, and toxicology. That's what this book's all about. You could actually take this book and add it to all the medical books, and it would make them all. This is the best medical book ever written. So anyways, because they don't know those three things, nutrition, epidemiology, toxicology, they don't know almost anything. I can teach any medical student. I don't care if they're first in their class. I don't care what school they went to. I can teach them more in 2 hours about the common diseases, what causes them, and how to cure them than any of them ever knows. Because they all learn the same thing. They're pretty much standardized, stereotyped into what they know. And I can tell you, they don't know any of the common questions and the common causes or treatments of these diseases. They really don't. Okay, now here's a painting. This is called Maid Milking a Cow by Gerhard ter Borch. And so the patient taking medicines for diseases that could easily have been cured by a low-fat vegan diet, they're basically chumps. They're getting milked by the system. And every day, a little bit of money is taken away from them. It says chump right here on the cow. I wrote that on there. So remember what Voltaire said. He said, I want my doctor to believe in God so that he does not rob me. Okay, and it reminds me of the other joke. What's the difference between a doctor and a lawyer? A lawyer will rob you. A doctor will rob you and kill you. Okay, so you got to be careful. Okay, and I think, doctors mean well, but basically it reminds me a lot of the school system. Okay. There's a lot of very nice people that go to teach in the grade school, high school, and the college system, and they mean well, and they want to help the students. But they don't run the system, and it's the same thing with medicine. A lot of doctors, nurses, and all kinds of other hospital workers, physical therapists, etc., psychologists, they really want to help the patients. They want to do good. They went into it to do good. They could have gone into something else. But what ends up happening is the system itself, it's like the school unions and the school systems, people who design the curriculum, they hate the students, okay? They want to sterilize them. They want to castrate them. They want to put them on drugs that cause a lobotomy, those ADHD stimulants. You don't sell... You'd be against the law to sell, an amphetamine to an adult on a street corner, but you're going to give it to a kid? It's insane. All right, so what I'm trying to say is the same thing happens with medicine. The doctors want to help the patients, but they're not allowed to because, big pharma controls the Ivy League and the major medical centers, and basically Some guy's working over there. He wants to get promoted. He wants to get, go from just being a little junior professor to being a full professor and having tenure and stuff. In order to do that, he's got to get grant money. In order to get grant money, he's got to beg the pharma company. And the pharma company tells him, look, you promote our drug, you'll get grant money. You don't promote our drug, you won't get anything. And if you cross us, you badmouth our drug, then we will get you fired. And they could do it. They just tell the school, here's $1 million, fire this jerk, he badmouthed our drug. Okay, so that's why you see all these papers, and the big pharma, big food, they own the journals, all right? So that's why you have to use your brain. You can't just read the papers and say, this is what the paper said. You have to also use your brain, because a lot of the information in the medical journals, it's not true. They're just a commercial. It'd be like going to the grocery store, looking at the mutual funds articles. You think those things are real articles? No, they're advertisements for those mutual funds. So the articles in medical journals are advertisements to sell those drugs. Okay, so here's a picture of starch, and I can tell you this, I'm triple boarded, it's first in my class, all that stuff, and the most important thing I ever learned in my whole career was this stuff about starch. The fact that if you eat starch, you'll be healthy, and like I said, it's a polymer of glucose, meaning a bunch of glucose molecules all connected together in a string with fiber wrapped around them. And so you need to separate the fiber from the glucose, and the glucose is solely absorbed into the blood. You keep a normal blood glucose a prolonged amount of time. If you just eat straight sweets, you'll tend to spike your blood glucose very rapidly. And the pancreas is confused by that, because really super sweet things in large amounts don't exist in nature, so it'll secrete too much insulin. You'll drive your blood glucose down kind of rapidly, and you'll end up with insulin rebound hypoglycemia, too much insulin. All right, so why did I say the most important thing I ever learned was humans should eat a large amount of starch, and then they're going to be healthy, okay? And I actually think fruits are much better than they get credit for, but fruits are a little complicated. We'll get into them later. As far as the starches, these are some of the common ones. The amount of percent calories from fat in garbanzo beans is about 13%, a little higher. Lentils only are about 3% fat. I like that. Oatmeal is about 16% fat. So anyways, just eat that and you'll have healthy. So you could basically not know anything. Just feed a bunch of people 90% of their calories from starch, the rest from, some fruits or vegetables, and they'll all be super healthy. They'll be way healthier than any place with all the fancy medical equipment. Okay, this is a quote from John McDougall. All long-standing healthy populations eat a starch-based diet. There are no exceptions, okay? And then here's a quote from C.S. Lewis. Spiritually, we are designed to run on Christ. Nothing else works. C.S. Lewis, from Mere Christianity, his book. Metabolically, we are designed to run on starch. Okay? All right, now here's figure 8. You are here to be or not to be a low-fat vegan. That is the question. You either do the healthy stuff like low-fat, low-protein, low-sodium vegan with no oils and avoid toxins, and then get your exercise, sleep, sunshine, and sense of purpose, and maintain your social relationships, your intellectual habits, or you end up being an ADS. That's an abbreviation I use for average dumb shit. And that kind of comes from like the PUA literature, the pickup artist literature, where they would call the guy who does everything wrong and trying to meet women, they call him an AFC, average frustrated chump. So for a health point of view, I call him an ADS, average dumb shit. Because I can tell you, all day long, I just see stupid, self-destructive behavior all day long. And it's kind of sad, like I wanted to be in medicine to help people, and most people, you really can't help them. Here's a table of contents. Nothing too exciting here. All the common diseases. I'll go in the theses next lecture. The 25 theses I made. Okay, disclaimer, if you're on any pills for diabetes or hypertension, let your doctor know before you change your diet, because you're going to have to titrate the dosages. People typically dramatically lower their medication dosages once they start eating low-fat vegan. And then, I just made this song here. Amazing starch, how sweet the sound that saved a slob like me. I once was fat, but now I'm thin. Was blind, but now I see. 'Twas starch that taught my arteries to flow, and starch my blockages relieved. How precious did that starch appear, the hour I first believed. Yeah, all you got to do is eat starch, and then you don't have to have a buzzsaw on your sternum. It's a pretty good deal. Okay, then I got a little more on this front cover. So here's this lady doctor, Dr. Lorraine. She says, other than trauma, Almost everything in conventional medicine is fake. It's a big statement. Almost everything in conventional medicine is fake. Doctors and nurses, they die from the same diseases as regular people. And if they can't save themselves, how are they going to save you? You walk into any hospital, you'll see lots of fat nurses and fat doctors and fat ancillary staff in the hospital and all other kinds of health professions. They don't know what they're doing. They don't know. They don't know. They've got all the common diseases themselves. Man's way of drugs and surgery doesn't help that much for most diseases. Conventional medicine doesn't want the vegan diet or Christianity because there is no money in it. The path to health is to follow God's way of healing. It is free, and anyone could do it. Low fat, whole food, vegan diet, sunshine, exercise, adequate sleep, hydration, manage your stress, forgive all your resentments, help other people, have a purpose in life, read the Bible, and trust in God. Okay, she wrote the book, I'm Not Afraid of Cancer Anymore. She survived metastatic breast cancer for over 30 years, I think about 40 years. All right, here's a quote by Thucydides. He wrote the book, The Peloponnesian War, about when the Greeks, where the Athens fought with Sparta. And he had been an admiral with the Athenian army and navy, but then he got kind of pushed out. But he was a real smart guy and he knew everything that had happened, so he wrote that great book. It's called My History Has Been Composed to Be an Everlasting Possession, Not the Showpiece of an Hour. This book is written not for the applause of the moment, but as a gift to mankind for all time. And I kind of feel like Thucydides in the sense that he was exiled sort of from Athens and the Athenian army. But he wrote this masterpiece of a book. I sort of feel like I'm a little bit exiled from conventional medicine. I work in conventional medicine, but I only use, part of my IQ. The rest of my IQ, the more interesting part, the upper part, is not allowed in conventional medicine. And I've talked about that before. When you're in sports, the better you get, the more people like you. The coaches, the players, the teams, the fans. But in medicine, the smarter you get, you are not welcome. You're just told, generate your billing codes and shut up. Okay, because there's no money in all this stuff. So, the exiles often write the best books. Okay, so that's why I'm talking to you and trying to help you here. All right, Oscar Wilde. He says, as a writer, he has mastered everything except for language. As a novelist, he can do everything except tell a story. As an artist, he is everything except articulate. He has nothing to say and says it. Okay, here's a quote from a feminist doctor. Dr. Rogers said that if a wife has leaky gut, instead of going for a fecal transplant by colonoscopy, that the wife should just kiss her husband's ass and take shit from him. That is obviously patriarchal and misogynist. And so I laugh about that because a lot of times when somebody really has a weak position, like they're in a medical field where all they do is poison patients and have crappy outcomes, then what they do when somebody else contradicts them, they can't debate the medical statement. So what they try to do is say anybody who disagrees with their field or their profession or their opinion is a jerk, okay? So you'll notice that's a common thing, okay? And you see that in politics too. When somebody is a stupid, demented, babbling fool, people will say that person is a stupid, demented, babbling fool. On the other hand, when the person's obviously intelligent and knows what they're doing, then they always say that person's a jerk, okay? Or some other insulting word, okay? And so then here I would say is, I'm the bad boy in nutrition. I'm going to make fun of your stupid habits and the phony experts you probably follow on the internet, because I do think most of the internet advice that one sees on health and nutrition is not true. A lot of it, I think, is deliberately wrong, like strong recommenders of the paleo, keto, carnivore, low-carb diet. That's ridiculous. And then a lot of it, though, is just ignorance. And like I said, in science and in medicine, no one is more hated than he who tells the truth. So I just do this channel and write these books as a hobby because I know it's the right thing to do. I also made a one-page summary. And so a lot of things I'm doing here completely go against what would be recommended. Like they'll tell you if you write a book, you should never give away a lot of key information in the beginning on the first page or two, because then the person will be not motivated to read the rest. Instead, they say give them a little bit of clickbait at the beginning and then hide the valuable stuff till later. And my attitude is, look, I know most people are too lazy and stupid and unmotivated and don't have any energy. Be lucky to get them to read the first page of the book, yet to let alone read everything. And I want to let them, get some help here. And also, basically, if you got, and we all do, fat friends, fat stupid friends and relatives are all fat and sick, you can cut this page out and give it to them. Okay, you can just hit the print screen button on your screen and you could print it. Okay, and here's what I'll say is a one-page summary of how to optimize one's health. Eat a low-fat, low-protein, vegan diet. Less than 10% of calories from protein. That appears to extend life, similar to caloric restriction. So by restricting protein a bit, you're kind of getting the effect of caloric restriction, and nobody wants to caloric restrict because it's like starving. It's like deprivation. That doesn't sound like a lot of fun. But in multiple different animal species, that's been shown to increase longevity. And there's good reason to think that low protein does as well, based on a lot of animal studies, and one can look at Kempner's work, with 19,000 patients, etc. Okay, and basically if you eat a low-fat vegan diet, you usually end up about 80-10-10. McDougall diet is about that. Esselstyn's diet is about that. My Spartan vegan diet is about that. If you go by what Chef AJ recommends or the other low-fat vegans, you all usually end up somewhere around there. Let's see. You usually should be eating foods that have no label on them or they only have one ingredient. As soon as they put a second ingredient, they can put other things in there like MSG and other things. You don't want that. Okay, the only supplement required for vegans is methylcobalamin B12. Okay, the only good foods, and I said that's a required one. You probably will need to take that. The only good foods are, and I like methylcobalamin. I don't like the other versions of cobalamin. The only good foods are starches, fruits, and vegetables. I'm keeping it quite simple. I don't like nuts. I think they're too fat. I don't like seeds. I think they're too fat. I certainly would. You could maybe make them yellow lights. I wouldn't make them green lights. Okay, try to get 7 or 8 hours of sleep a night. That's a hard thing to do. That's like the hard thing for me because I work so much. I still work full-time as a clinical doctor. I wish I could do this full-time, but there's no money in it. My channel's not even monetized. I hardly sell any books. I'd give them to people for free if it was easier to ship. I can't email them because it costs. I'm not allowed to email them. You can't email even a single picture with my email. All right, so anyways, lack of sleep is like stress. You elevate the same hormones, the catecholamines, norepinephrine, epinephrine, same thing as adrenaline, noradrenaline, and you elevate cortisol, okay? And that leads to increased binge eating, overeating, hyperlipidemia, weight gain, increased glutamate in the brain, excitotoxic effect. And that's also why I think all this caffeine stuff is bad. Tea and coffee, caffeine pills, bad idea. They not only increase the activity of the brain neurons, so they're a stimulant glutamate-like effect, but they also decrease blood supply to the brain because of vasoconstriction. So you can simultaneously get increased metabolic demand with less metabolic nutrient supply of oxygen and glucose. Not good. Okay, adequate hydration can be helpful, but don't do it right before going to bed. You have to wake up the void. You won't sleep as well. Aerobic exercise every day. Try to walk as much as you can. Try to get your vitamin D from the sun. Do some strength exercise at least once a week. Twice a week if you've got the time. Have a strong purpose to do something good in your life. It energizes you because if you are doing something that you believe is good and you know is good, it helps you to endure all the sadness and disappointments and bad stuff that we have to endure in life. So it gives you more resilience and it makes you happier. It's just like the quote by Arthur Schopenhauer. He said, "Forget about trying to have a happy life. The best a man can do is to have a heroic life." And I think if you try to have a heroic life, be the best version of yourself you can be, do the best thing that you could do, you will be happier. You'll like yourself. You'll respect yourself. Enjoy friends who allow you to be yourself. I mean, that's like kind of almost a definition of a friend. Somebody who lets you be yourself and doesn't give you a hard time. Laughter lowers stress levels. Lowering stress levels lowers your cortisol, puts you on the path to better health. It's good to pray every day. All the major religions, anybody who practices the major religions, they're all healthier. And Harold Koenig has written books about that, written papers about it. Lots of people have written papers and stuff about that. I am a Christian. I think Christianity is the best religion. Whatever religion you do, if it's one of the major ones, they tend to be well established and pretty helpful to people. I love Christianity because it's got the best art, music, books, literature, and if you want to be creator, it's good to have a bunch of role models, and Christianity is full of them. And I joke about the psychology. I said the psychology of Christianity is better than the psychology of psychology. You ask a psychologist, what is good art? They can't answer that question, okay? You ask them, who is a good role model? Christianity can tell you, Jesus Christ and all the saints in 2 seconds, and Mary, okay? Pretty easy for them to answer these questions, okay? They'll tell you what the best art is, the best literature. Easy, okay? Psychology can't do any of those things. Psychology can't even tell you what's the difference between a man and a woman. How are they going to give you good advice about relationships? Come on, it's a joke. It's part of the modern establishment to drug people. And people also tell me, well, why do I talk about religion? Wouldn't it be better if I was non-denominational? And I will say no, because I don't believe you can have good health care without biblical values. You have to value the individual. And I like Ayn Rand. I love Ayn Rand. And she had said the smallest minority is the individual. So you have to love and respect them. But with atheism and calling people, talking monkeys, you're not going to value them. The system will always just, rip them off as long as that's the system. And that is the current system. A college professor is not allowed to talk about intelligent design or Christianity. They'll get fired for that. And then they pretend that evolution can really answer these questions, and it can't. Evolution has nothing to do with the origin of life. That's geologic chemistry. That's not biologic chemistry. And they're not even remotely in the ballpark close to doing it. If you want to hear some interesting people on origin of life stuff, take a look at James Tour. He's this PhD genius guy, okay, who's done a lot of research in that area. And I tell you that because atheistic Darwin science tries to pretend it has the answer. So I'll tell you what atheistic Darwin science is good for. It's good for killing people, okay? Atheistic Darwin science is the one that sells amphetamines to children. It's the one that treats coronary artery disease with pills that don't work. And all these other diseases, it tricks patients into taking pills that don't work. All these psychiatry drugs that cause a chemical lobotomy. That's why you have to have a metaphysical point of view, a philosophic point of view that values the individual, that puts them above everything else. Otherwise, you're not going to have good health care. And, and the other people think, oh, well, atheism is scientific. And you know what I'm going to say to that? BS, okay? You don't even know what you're talking about. All these, lightweights who really don't know much say things like that. If you went to the beach, okay, and you saw your name written in the sand, you would say an intelligent person. This is from this English guy who writes about ethics. This is not in my book, but I remember this English guy who writes about ethics. And what he said was, if you saw your name written in the sand in the beach, you would say, an intelligent person wrote my name. Somebody who is literate, somebody who knows me, okay? And whatever your name is, 5, 10 letters, whatever. An intelligent, thoughtful person wrote that so I would see it. The ocean's not going to write your name in the sand. So what's the point? Let's say your name's 10 letters. Let's say your name is really long, it's 20 letters. Okay, fine. The human genome, your DNA and your chromosomes, is 3.3 billion base pairs of very complex biochemistry. Where did that information come from? Okay. I know more about biology. I majored in evolutionary biology at Stanford as an A+ student. Okay, I've been studying science in great intense detail, science, biology, medicine, since I was 18 years old. It's almost like God took me and said, you had fun in high school, all that stuff's over. You're going to work every day the rest of your life. Okay, I didn't plan my life to be this way. But it's almost like God said, you will be a scholar and you will work and you forget about all this other stuff. Okay, and people say, well, why don't you take it easy? I can't. Okay, it just is what I'm stuck. It's how my life is. And I can tell you that you can't explain this stuff. There's no scientific explanation for the brain having 100 billion neurons and them all connecting correctly to each other and then having, between 5 to 10 times as many support cells all connected to them correctly as well in different parts of the brain. So you're talking a minimum of 500 billion neurons and supporting cells. Minimum. It's actually more than that, but it's a minimum of that. How do they all connect correctly? How do they all know what to do? Okay, you're going to tell me that happens spontaneously? Pfft, don't make me laugh, okay? And all the phyla sort of came out of nowhere for the different types of forms of life in the Cambrian expansion, whatever that was, like 650 million years ago, something like that. So what I'm saying is there's no transitional forms. You're not going to see transitional forms. We're the transitional forms, okay? I joke, we came from chimps. Yeah, right, our common ancestor, okay? I knew an Italian girl in high school who had hairy forearms, okay? That's about it. We don't have anybody who's got, chimp arms and legs. I'm just trying to say is, it's nonsense, okay? Once you learn more about it, we cannot explain these things, okay? And I love all this Christian stuff. And then also, I think, the way mankind is going, the modern word for slavery is communism, okay? And atheistic Darwinism is the religion, so-called religion, of communism and slavery. And we're either going to return to biblical ethics or we're going to be slaves. And I can tell you, the rich people who run the world, okay, the billionaire types, they look around and they go, look at this earth. It's overcrowded. Look at these cities, all this pollution coming out of the smokestacks from these factories. Look at these highways, all jam-packed, traffic jams of cars. And all these people, all these stupid people, they're like vermin, okay? I tell you this because that is how they think. If you study this, and I study this stuff a lot, if you study how the really rich and powerful people think that run the world, that's how they think. And they want to reduce the population. Right now, there's about 8.5 billion people. They want it down to 500,000. Okay, 500 million. All right? So what that means is they want 9 out of 10 people gone. All right? So what I'm trying to say is, do you really want them in charge of your healthcare system when they want to minimize the population as much as possible? I don't know about you. I'll take my chances with God's way of healing. Okay? And I can tell you, I studied the pathophysiology as much as I could backwards and forwards, and I'm pretty good at it. And I can tell you that's where the health is. You know, and VegSource had a good quote. They said, you know, fiber is life and pharma is death. Okay? You want to be as self-sufficient and independent as you could possibly be. And that's how you do it. Okay? And also the reason why I love Christianity, it's produced the best movies, the best literature. Look at the best novels. The best novels are Christmas Carol by Charles Dickens, Les Mis by Victor Hugo, Brothers Karamazov by Dostoevsky, Quo Vadis by H.S. Henryk Sienkiewicz, Polish guy, Don Quixote by Cervantes, and there's a couple other great ones in there in that top 10, okay? You know, and even though Da Vinci Code, I disagree with a lot of the information in there, I think it's bogus, but man, is it an entertaining book. All right, and the music is just magnificent. So I say these things because either people are going to be united in biblical ethics. It doesn't matter what religions you are. Go ahead and do whatever religion you want. But you should have biblical ethics, which basically says man's created in the image of God, and, you know, love thy neighbor, help each other, follow the 10 commandments, all this stuff, because that makes everybody nice to each other, like a ripple effect. You're nice to the people around you, they're nice to the people around them, and everybody's better off. And if you don't have that, what does atheistic Darwinism says? Atheistic Darwinism says might is right. Whoever's got the money and the muscle has the right to beat the crap out of anyone else they want, to force everyone else to do what they say, and all these talking monkeys, they have no rights, okay? And if you think it's different, then you don't understand. You haven't read history, okay? Take a look at Soviet Russia in the 1900s, okay? They bumped off 65 million Christians. They burnt down 48,000 churches, okay? That's what always happens once you go to communism. If you're, let's say you have $1 billion, they always are going to want communism, because when you have no religious God, then that means whoever's got the most money, the most power, that person is a god. In terms of the equivalent in humans, in the human sphere, if you will. So they're always going to want that. And then they're always going to want everyone else to just be a bunch of, you know, little minimum wage slaves. All right? So that's what it comes down to. And there's no way around it. You spend some time studying. You'll see I'm not exaggerating. I wish I was. Okay? And I'm fully aware of the fact that things are headed that way. And right now the forces of atheistic Darwinism, Satanism, and all that other crap are winning, because all the sort of good, simple people, they're stupid and ignorant, and they don't know their history. They don't even know where they came from. They don't know anything about Western civilization, about Christianity. They don't know any of this stuff. And because of that, they're very metaphysically weak, and they are going to be pushed into slavery, and there's nothing that they can do about it, or, you know, extinguished in some other way. So they're kind of screwed. All right, so first of all, I talk on this health, optimizing health one-page summary. These are all the things that you should do to improve your health. And then the second part of it, I'll talk about these are the things that one should avoid. All right, avoid high-fat foods, no avocados. Their avocados are also got all that stuff sprayed on their outer surface, AP, and then you know what, L. Avoid anything with that on it, which includes a lot of apples too. I wouldn't shop at any store that puts that on its food, and there's a lot of them. I've given separate video lectures on almost every single topic in this book. I've previously given a video lecture on it. GPs sprayed on the non-organic soy, atrazine sprayed on the non-organic corn. You know, that's a major estrogenic chemical. That's an excitotoxin. It also predisposes to leaky gut, all kinds of problems associated with it. Chlormequat's one of the latest toxic chemicals being put on food. Unless you're super skinny, then it's probably best to avoid nuts and seeds because they're very high in fat. They also tend to have high AGEs, advanced glycation end products. They also tend to be relatively high in protein. I got like a double mouse, so it's kind of confusing for me sometimes to know. You can only see one of them, but I can see two. Okay, no animal foods, not one bite. Animal protein accelerates reaching an mTOR, so it accelerates aging. Fat's also a poison. All the fats are bad. I gave previous lectures on that. The only good fat, so-called fat, is fiber because it gets converted into short-chain fatty acids. All the rest of them predispose to obesity, insulin resistance, atherosclerosis, diabetes. Okay, no dairy. Dairy is an animal food. All dairy, including yogurt, is bad for your health. No oil, not one drop, as Caldwell-Esselstyn says. Even omega-3s are bad for you. I gave previous lectures about how they have immunosuppressant effects. They increase your risk of prostate cancer, increase your risk of diabetes. I would stay away from that stuff. Anything that immunosuppresses you potentially increases your risk of cancer, and not just prostate cancer, potentially metastatic cancer of other types too, from animal studies and whatnot. No processed food except if anything of a single ingredient. I would still eat plain oatmeal with water, or quinoa, plain quinoa with water, but I wouldn't eat any other processed food. That's a minimally processed food. No artificial sweeteners, they're all bad. Like stevia makes people infertile or contributes to infertility. And the other ones all had problems with them. I would avoid anything with, by avoiding anything with more than one ingredient, you can avoid MSG and MFG. No caffeine, coffee, or tea. Because I know some people say, oh, well, the aluminum in tea doesn't, get into your body so much. I don't know. I don't know if I would trust that statement. The caffeine, all the stuff is bad. They also sometimes concentrate soy. There's potential issues with them that I don't like. Aluminum can combine with F- and cause problems for you. I avoid sweets. Already I duplicated artificial sweeteners there. No MJ. I mean, you show me a person who recommends MJ, I'll show you a stupid person, all right? I get the stupidest people try to talk to me about MJ. I always run away from the conversation as fast as I can. I know the person's a moron. They cause a lot of brain damage. I see a lot of brain damage patients with regard to MJ. I'm friends with neurologists. We talk about this sometime, how these MJ patients are messed up and they're so stupid. They think they're smart, but they're stupid. No tobacco, no vaping. All that stuff is neurotoxic. Do not hold the cell phone to the side of your head. Too much EMF opens up voltage-gated calcium channels. Avoid personal care products. They're all full of estrogenic preservatives, quite often antifungal preservatives. And these things are all toxic. They're bad for your brain. They're obesogens. They potentially increase your risk of cancer. Avoid cleaning chemicals to the extent you can. If it's going to kill a bug, it's going to be toxic to you as well. Get the junk out of your house. Like Chef AJ says, if it's in your house, it's in your mouth. Okay, and so that's it for the front cover. Maybe I'll throw in the back cover too, and then we'll end this little video here. What did I say on the back cover? So here's the back cover of the book. I said, I jokingly called myself the Nostradamus of nutrition, Messiah of metabolism, Spartan vegan, fellowship trained in divine intervention and neuromythology. I'm just having fun with that. I said, this is the best medical book I've ever written, that I've rewritten all the medical textbooks. And yeah, I have done that. I've rewritten all the medical textbooks. Now, I know I don't have any ability to advertise. I don't have any sponsors. I don't have any connections with the higher-ups. But I'll just tell you, this is true. This is better than all the medical books ever written. And that's easily provable because they all suck. None of them can do anything to help the hypertension, diabetic, cancer, dementia patient. Well, some cancer patients they can help. Okay, but cancer is a complex subject. Okay, none of them can cure, is what I should have meant to say, hypertension, diabetes, or dementia. Okay, usually avoiding the cause is the best treatment, but they never tell you what the causes of those diseases. I'll tell you exactly what the causes are to the extent that it's known, and it also helps. And then I go through all the major stuff that's not in the books. I'll talk about all these guys that you've heard of: McDougall, Swank, Esselstyn, Kempner, Ornish. None of them are in the medical textbooks. I've never seen a single one of them ever have their names in any of the medical textbooks, including the recent editions. Okay, and I'll go through all the big stuff we talked about before. Delatorre's theory of mouse equivalents for vascular dementia, my own theories, of course, and the other ones, Brownlee's theories. I'll go through all these major things that should get in the books, because almost all the really useful information about disease causation and cure and the way to prevent disease, it's not in the books, not at all. All right, so that's it for this first video on the front cover of Medical Reformation book. So hope that was helpful, and I'll try to do a chapter or so every day or so.